We've moved into a fairly volatile spring, but there does seem to be some glimmers of hope, especially around tariffs. Now, you've heard my thoughts and analysis on it over the last few videos. This week, I want to share with you a few quotes and some thoughts from business leaders, economic analysts, and Wall Street titans. So stay tuned for this edition of the Video Market Update. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you some of the quotes from people who are pro the administration. So these are not haters, right? These are people who are pro the administration, and give you their thoughts on where we are in the market and where we are with the tariffs. So the first one is Charlie Gasparino on Fox Business. We are almost in a recession. We have markets that are on edge. We need people to buy our debt, and China supplies a lot of cheap goods. We could see inflation ratchet up dramatically if we don't get a deal with them. Now, on the same network, on Fox Business, this is what Charles Payne said. So see if you can note the difference. The stock market marching higher and many on the street, right, Wall Street, are going to have to regroup. I'm talking about the experts. Remember, most firms spent the last month lowering targets, and most of the pundits have ridiculed retail investors for buying the dip. Look at all that buying in the retail crowd has been doing, but at what point will the experts buy in or sit on the sideline and root for failure? Of course, some already are doing it for political reasons, but also for the sake of professional reputation. At some point, if this thing gets going, watch out. So he's optimistic, and he believes that the quote-unquote experts have been wrong and have been overly partisan and overly worried about what's going on. Okay, here's another one, Ken Griffin, right? Again, these are not people who are anti the current administration. He said in an interview that we are putting the United States brand at risk. He said the U.S. has become 20% poorer in the last 4 weeks. There is no greater opportunity when the pie is rapidly shrinking. And then he said, all we are trying to do is tread water and not drown. His gravest concern is if we are diminishing the stature of the United States around the world. Bill Ackman, who's a fairly famous hedge fund manager, right? He's quite well known. He said that we are approaching an economic nuclear winter and suggests a ceasefire. Jeremy Siegel, a famed investor and now a Wharton School of Business professor, said this is the biggest policy mistake in 95 years. So you can see and hear a little of the pessimism, but I want you to listen to Art Laffer, who I think most of us know from the Laffer curve. He said this is the most scary influx economic moment of his life. He talked about how protectionism and isolationism brings down the economy. He said, once you screw around with supply chains, production facilities, and all that, it's very hard to reverse it. You've got something, and this is very time sensitive. But he said this to close with an optimistic tone. He said he believes if the president can get a deal, especially where we get lower tariffs around the world and we can get better trade deals with China, he believes, this is his opinion, this is not mine, he believes that the stock market will take off and go up 20,000 points. Think about that. That would be a Dow Jones not at 40, not at 50, at 60. So I think where we're at is where everyone is kind of saying, okay, we're looking for these tariffs to make us stronger, but one of the ways we need to do it to settle the market and to settle the economy is we've got to get a deal and get better trade deals with China. And once that happens, as Charles Payne said, this market could get legs, and watch out. And so again, that might sound negative, that might sound pessimistic, but really underlying all of those things are, if we can get better trade deals, which is, I think at this point, the main goal of the tariffs, if we can get those trade deals, watch out. I'm optimistic as well, and I just hope they come, because the volatility in the short term, okay, but if we have this much volatility going into the summer, I think it is going to create, again, additional heartburn for a lot of us out there. So any thoughts on this or anything you're hearing in the market, let me know. If not, as always, I hope you make it a great week.